For a long period of time, I associated comfort films with positivity.
Ms. Vito, you're supposed to be some kind of expert in automobiles, is that correct? Is that correct?
The action film with stunning visuals, funny moments, and a satisfactory ending. That's a comfort film. Legal comedy with whip-cracking dialogue, high-stake plot that doesn't feel overwrought, and a gratifying ending. That's another comfort film. A comedy drama that explores human relationships and complexities in a way that feels real and compassionate. That's a comfort show. But if comfort films are just about positivity, how do you explain The Wire being my comfort show? It's the show that lays out the systemic reasons behind governmental malfunction and deals with the socioeconomic realities of that malfunction. It's not a positive show. So, why do I enjoy watching it over and over again? You see, the point of this whole talk is not to answer the question or any question about what makes a film a comfort film. The point of it is simply to say that what makes a film a comfort film is not just about positivity, like I used to believe. There are multiple feelings and reasons as to why a film would be a comfort film. And after seeing Tremors, the question of what makes a film a comfort film even got more complex for me.
Thanks.
No problem. Anytime.
Tremors is fascinating because, as a horror film, it's supposed to simply just do what horror films do and move on. It's supposed to evoke fear and suspense and give you a lingering feeling of excitement and rush. Best case scenario, maybe it's so good that you want to see it again and again, or it becomes so memorable that you just can't forget how you felt the first time you saw it. The reality is, horror films rarely become comfort films that most people want to see over and over again. For one, the most compelling thing about them is the fear and thrill they create. And once you get familiar with the plots after seeing them a couple times, they become much less compelling. Another reason, which I think is the most important reason, is that horror films have a disconnect from everyday human tendencies. You can even argue that it's a requirement for horror films to feel less human in a way. The focus is usually centered around a mystery or problem, and every action is usually geared towards unraveling that mystery and solving that problem. First, they build up a mystery that is difficult to make sense of, or a problem that is difficult to solve. And to solve that problem or make sense of that mystery, they systematically reveal a flaw that the protagonist can take advantage of, or they build up the protagonist to have an extraordinary talent that can be used in solving that problem, or they just create an extraordinary situation with so much luck and many 50-50 scenarios. The point is, it is mostly about an extraordinary problem that eventually gets solved by an extraordinary solution. And during the entire process, there's an absence of normalcy or the human ordinariness that tends to be so relatable and raw. In a way, this picture I've painted is what makes us love watching horror films. We want to get lost in that extraordinariness, that completely unrealistic world. And in a way, that's human too. But the same picture is also what prevents horror films from being comfort films. There's something evergreen about relatability, rawness, human ordinariness, human dynamics, and chemistry. And these are things that horror films tend to not be good at creating. However, few horror films have tried to be extraordinary and at the same time ordinary. They've tried to create a story centered around using the ordinariness of humanity to solve an extraordinary problem. Jaws has tried, excellent film, and I think it did very well. Nope has tried, underrated film. I think it needs to be talked about more. But I haven't seen a horror film that comes close to being as good at it as Tremors was. Tremors is the blueprint.
Guys, look, I don't need firewood. I have this big order to fill, and I have to build my new pottery kiln. Come on, it'll be at least a month's work. I'll throw in lunches. And beer.
In Tremors, there were about 30 minutes from the start of the film to the point when it became clear that something incredibly insane might be happening in this town. And around 90% of those 30 minutes were spent with these two guys. In that spell, we learned that they are best friends, that they have a healthy relationship, that they live life on a win, and that they are underachievers who are starting to get fed up with their situation. In that same spell, we met a survivalist couple that have a different mindset from the best friends we've been going on the journey with. They are proactively preparing for an emergency that might never happen.
Look, these are hollow points, but they're not Hydra Shock hollow points.
Excuse me, I thought bullets were bullets.
Hi, guys. What you been doing?
Well, we
college student, that Rona.
Rhonda. Yeah, she's having some trouble with her, things.
You know, those college kids turn up oil or uranium or something out there? Next thing, the feds will be at our door. Sorry, time to move. Eminent domain.
Down, honey, down.
Yeah, Bert. The way you worry, you're gonna have a heart attack before you get a chance to survive World War III.
The disaster is about to happen, and that's fascinating. But what's really happening here is we're getting to know these characters, the kind of relationship they have with each other. And we're getting to know this town, its geography, its economy, and its social dynamics. Every time we meet a new character, the scene is written in a way that we always learn something unique about that character that helps us understand who they might be. This kind of world building is not very common in horror films. What Tremors is doing is laying the groundwork for a story that completely reveals the quality of humans. We learn that the best friends are jacks of all trades with highly mechanical abilities. We learn that they're spontaneous. We learn that she's a graduate student studying seismic activity. We learn all sorts of things about these people and this town, things that are later too very few scenes, but yet are enough to help us understand their tendencies and capabilities. So when the mystery completely unravels, we get a story that solely relies on the characters of these isolated humans to create a captivating experience.
I think I have an idea.
You know, we're gonna have to come up with some sort of plan. He's just gonna wait us to death.
Yeah, well, I was
Why don't
thinking
we
if
just make
could...
a run for it? We outran him yesterday.
Run for it? Running's not a plan. Now, running's what you do when the plan fails. Valentine, you're not even trying to think of a plan.
Well, it ain't like we got a hell of a lot of options.
Always options. We just gotta think of them, that's all.
All right, well, why don't you start thinking?
Well, why in the hell do I always have to do all the thinking?
Who died and made you Einstein?
You guys know how to pole vault! We just stay where it can't get us.
In Jaws, which does the same things, somewhat, there's this scene where the three main characters are just connecting and having a human experience. In that scene, there's an extensive use of dialogue to reveal the characters' backstories, which help us understand how they became who they are. It also helps us understand their motivation. It contextualizes their flaws and it turns their rash or cowardly decisions from what could have been a frustrating watch into a captivating experience. It worked, but what really made Jaws captivating weren't really those things. What really made Jaws captivating was the filming. In Tremors, even in scenes where lesser known characters are killed by the monster, there's a feeling you have beyond just fear or thrill of watching the suspenseful and horrific event. There's a feeling of sadness for those characters, even if that was the first time seeing them. And it is because the characters in Tremors are not just written as elements to be used in the film. They are written as actual humans with experience, qualities, and dynamics that are relatable to us.
Just keep looking at that beautiful sky. That's the sky that's gonna be over our roof every night when we're done.
What if we don't finish the roof? Then we can look at the sky all the time. Oh, that damn thing.
In many horror films, it feels like the characters you see are just there as elements to be used in creating a thrilling experience. In Jaws, you see people on the beach, going for a swim, and then the scene is narrowed down to a person or a group, and the suspense builds and builds and peaks. That's not a flaw, it's a feature. We don't watch horror films for relatable human experiences, and the lack of it doesn't take anything away from the films. We watch horror films for that experience that we can only get from watching horror films, and that's great. Jaws is an all-timer. But I feel like when we see a horror film that is able to create that experience and still manages to feel so human, as Tremors is, then we should appreciate that.
Look out! Is there some higher force at work here? I mean, are we asking too much of life?
Another thing about Tremors is that it's not just a horror film using human ordinariness to solve an extraordinary problem. It's not just using these ordinary characters to create a thrilling experience. It also purely exists as a film about humans. Like, it could have been just a comedy drama. The diversity among these few people living in a small town, the relationships they have with each other, the innate burden they carry, the best friends having that relatable feeling of failure, And just when they were about to try something else, make an attempt at maybe changing their lives, something started happening in town that made it feel like they were stuck in that situation.
Hey, Rhonda, what's the name you call those things? Where did they come from?
Huh? I don't know.
You're a scientist, aren't you? Yeah, aren't you supposed to have a theory or something?
Look, these creatures are absolutely unprecedented.
Yeah, but where do they come from?
Yeah.
There are many things to cherish and root for during the dire situation with the monster. But maybe the most important one is these dynamics we see forming between two main characters while they were fighting for their lives. One character has these arbitrary standards that are more about shying away from real commitment than anything else. And the human is getting attracted to doesn't fit any of the standards. That's another human thing to watch for, root for. You're hoping able to survive and maybe he gets a chance to free himself from that burden because you can see the chemistry building. The monster raises the stakes by adding an element of survival to a film that is already character driven. The will to survive is maybe the most human trait that we have, and in a film that has so many human-like tendencies, in a film that is driven by these human-like tendencies, the will to survive topples it all. It changes the central question from will you fall in love again to will you survive long enough to fall in love again? That raises the stakes. But take away the monster and you still get the first question, which is still a thrilling one.
That's supposed to be a girl.
You will have long blonde hair, big green eyes, world-class breasts, ass that won't quit, and legs that go all the way up.